The meeting Jake sat on the soft blue chair, staring at the glowing walls of the alien room. Everything looked smooth and quiet. The air smelled like sweet flowers, and soft music played in the background. But his eyes were not on the walls. They were on her. She stood near the corner, away from everyone else. Her skin was light silver and her eyes were large and deep purple. She looked calm like the others, but every time Jake's eyes rested on her, she moved. A small shake. A little flinch, like a cold breeze, touched her skin. Her name was Surreal. Jake had arrived on this planet 5 days ago. He was part of a peace program between humans and the alien race called the Thyli. They were known for their calm minds and soft voices. They believed in peace, knowledge, and connection. They could share thoughts without speaking. They used something called the mind link. The mind link was strange for Jake. When the Thyli connected with him, he felt soft waves of emotions and pictures. Sometimes it was colors, sometimes music, sometimes a feeling. But Surreal never connected with him. Not even once. The group of alien researchers welcomed Jake with warm smiles. They showed him their cities, their gardens, their skies filled with floating lights. Everything was beautiful, quiet, and peaceful. But Jake felt something was wrong. It was her. Every time he entered the room, Surreal looked at him, then looked away quickly. When he thought about her just for a second, she turned pale. Her body became stiff. Once he even saw her hands shake. At first, he thought he was imagining it. Maybe she was shy. Maybe she didn't like humans. Maybe she didn't like him. But then it happened again. And again. Today, he decided to test it. He sat in the shared room where all the researchers met once a day to practice the mind link. Soft music filled the air and the aliens closed their eyes. Jake saw Surreal sit at the back as usual. He closed his eyes and thought, Surreal. He imagined her eyes, her voice. He imagined what she looked like when she smiled, even though she never had. A sharp sound filled the room. Someone gasped. Jake opened his eyes. Surreal was standing now, her face white. Her eyes were wide. She looked straight at him, and then turned and walked out of the room quickly. No one said anything. The music started again, but Jake didn't listen. He stared at the door where Surreal had gone. What just happened? After the session, Jake walked through the long glass hallways, trying to find her. He had questions, but he wasn't sure what he would say. Maybe she was sick, maybe it was something else. He turned a corner and stopped. An older alien stood there. Not Surreal. This one was taller, dressed in a white robe. His skin was blue instead of silver. His eyes were sharp, full of age and thought. You are Jake, he said. Jake nodded. I am Varen. I lead the Mind Link Council. I see, Jake said carefully. Varan took a step closer. You must not think about Surreal. Jake blinked. What? Your thoughts. They reach her. They touch her deeply. She cannot block them. I don't understand. Varen looked serious. Humans, you feel strongly. Too strongly. Your thoughts are like fire to her. She feels them like they are her own. It hurts her. Jake looked down, feeling guilty. I didn't mean to. She was always so quiet. Varan's voice became soft. There is something inside you, something old, something we forgot long ago. When you think of her, she feels it, and it shakes her. Jake stepped back slowly. What does she feel? Varan's eyes darkened. Danger, memory, power, things we chose to forget. Jake stood in silence. Varan turned to leave, then stopped. Be careful, human. The mind can be a powerful thing, and not all minds are ready for the fire you carry. Then he walked away, leaving Jake alone in the glass hallway. Jake stared at his reflection in the clear walls. His face looked normal. His thoughts felt normal. But something inside him had touched her, and it scared her. What did she see when he thought of her? That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He lay in his soft bed, eyes open, thinking. The stars outside the window blinked quietly. He wondered if Surreal was awake too. He wondered if she could still feel his thoughts. He closed his eyes and tried not to think. But the last image in his mind was her face, her wide eyes, and the way she shuddered when she looked at him. And somewhere, far down the hallway, a quiet voice whispered. To itself, he's waking up. The room was cold when Jake woke up. He sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes. It was still dark. Only the soft lights on the wall glowed like sleeping stars. His heart beat slower now, but something felt wrong. Something had been there. In his dream, a voice. Not a loud voice. A whisper. Soft, broken, almost afraid. He's waking up. Those words stayed in his ears like an echo, even after he opened his eyes. He stood up and walked to the window. The alien city was silent, covered in a silver-blue glow. Floating towers stretched high into the sky. Glowing bridges moved like slow rivers between them. It looked peaceful, but inside, Jake felt anything but peace. He had tried not to think of Surreal. He really had. But the moment he closed his eyes, she came back. Not her face, but a feeling. Something cold, sharp, and deep. And a strange connection, like invisible strings pulling between their minds. What was happening? He had to know. The next morning, Jake didn't go to the group meeting. He walked instead through the crystal gardens, alone. Soft flowers changed color as he passed. Strange. Bird-like creatures flew overhead. Everything here was quiet and slow, but Jake's mind was loud. He kept seeing her eyes. Those big purple eyes, filled with something he couldn't name. Not fear, not hate. Something else. Something like recognition. He turned a corner and stopped. She was there. Surreal. Standing under the glass tree, looking at him. She didn't move. He almost called out, but something in her face stopped him. Instead, he walked slowly, carefully, until they stood just a few steps apart. Silence. Then, she spoke. Her voice was soft, almost musical. You dreamt of me. Jake froze. How do you know? I felt it. He swallowed. You always feel it? She nodded. When you think of me, when you speak my name in your mind, when you wonder, it reaches me. I cannot stop it. Why? He asked. No one else reacts like you. Sorrel looked down at her hands, then up at him again. I'm different. I hear more than most, Thalie. Not just words, but the feeling behind them, the shape of thought, the color of memory. And mine. Hurt you? She didn't answer at first, then said quietly, yours burn. That word hit him hard. Burn, like fire. Your thoughts are bright, loud, alive. When you think of me, I feel all of it. The fear, the questions, the want. It's too much. It shakes me. Jake felt heat in his face. I didn't mean to hurt you. Sorrel looked at him for a long time. It's not just pain, she said finally. It's also something else. Something old. Jake's breath caught. What do you mean? Your thoughts. They carry weight. Memory that is not just yours. Pieces of something forgotten. I feel it. When you sleep. When you remember things that are not from this life. He stared at her. How could you know that? She stepped closer. Because I see them too. Then she reached out, gently, and touched his hand. The moment her skin met his, the world changed. Jake fell, not in body, in mind. A rush of sound, color, and heat exploded inside his skull. Images flashed, burning cities, giant ships. In space, a voice screaming in a language he didn't know. Stars fell from the sky. Armies ran under black banners, and above it all, a symbol. glowing red. Alive. He pulled back with a gasp. His knees hit the ground. Surreal was breathing hard, her eyes wide with fear. What? What was that? He asked, shaking. Your mind, she whispered. But not just yours. Something deeper. Something buried. What did you see? She looked at him like he was a puzzle with a missing piece. I saw war. Jake felt cold. I've never seen anything like that. I've never been in a war. Your body hasn't, she said. But your blood remembers. They sat in silence for a long time after that. Birds flew overhead. The wind blew softly through the crystal leaves. Then Surreal spoke again. We, the Thaeli, removed emotion from our minds long ago. We chose peace, order, harmony. But in doing so, we lost something. What? Fire. The ability to feel something strong, to want, to fight for it. We called it the flame. We believed it was too dangerous. We thought it was gone forever. Jake stared at his hands. But it's in me? Sorrel nodded. Yes, and when I feel it, part of me remembers what it felt like to be alive. He looked at her. Is that why you shudder? No, she said softly. I shudder because part of me wants it. That night, Jake returned to his room, mind spinning. What had he seen? Was it a dream? A memory? Something genetic? He couldn't sleep. Outside his door, the hallway was silent. No footsteps, no sounds. Until suddenly, a knock. He stood up fast. The door slid open. Surreal stood there, her eyes wide, her face pale. They know, she whispered. The council. They saw the connection. What do they want? Her voice shook. To break it. To erase it. Before it grows stronger. Jake's jaw tightened. And what if it does grow? She looked up at him with trembling lips. Then you won't just wake up the flame, Jake. You'll become it. Forbidden Mind Jake didn't sleep. After Surreal's warning, he sat in the corner of his room, back against the wall, eyes fixed on the door. The soft lights flickered above, but he barely noticed them. All he could think about was her voice. They know the council, the leaders of the Thaeli, the ones who first welcomed him with gentle smiles and kind words. Now they wanted to break the link, to erase the strange bond between him and Surreal. But why? What were they so afraid of? In the early hours, the door opened with a soft hiss. Jake stood quickly, but it wasn't the council. It was Surreal. Her cloak was pulled tight, and her silver skin looked even paler than before. Her eyes searched the room before she entered, as if expecting someone to follow. We don't have much time, she whispered. They're watching, you now. Why? Jake asked. What did I do? Surreal stepped closer, her voice shaking. You didn't do anything. But your mind, it's not like ours. Not like anyone's. Jake frowned. You said I carry the flame. What is it really? She paused. Not just emotion, not just passion. Something deeper. Something we locked away thousands of years ago. A part of the mind that dreams, that fights, that changes the world around it by will alone. You're talking about power. She nodded slowly. And power without control is what destroyed our first empire. They sat down together, hiding, in the shadows of the room. Surreal reached into her cloak and pulled out a small crystal cube. She placed it between them. It began to glow. What is that? Jake asked. A memory stone, she replied, but not one the council approves. It holds forbidden knowledge. The cube shimmered and images rose from it like smoke. Jake saw a different world. Dark skies, cities burning, strange symbols glowing on the ground. Alien warriors with eyes like fire. Then a figure appeared in the vision, a human. Jake gasped. The man in the vision looked just like him. Not exactly, but close. Same eyes, same build, same fire in the face. Who is that? One of the last flame bearers, Surreal said. From the time before your people were sent to Earth. Jake turned to her, stunned. Sent? We weren't born there? Sorrel looked sad. Your kind were placed there, as a last hope, the final children of a dying race. Minds like yours were too dangerous to remain among the stars. So they erased your memory. They changed. Your world. They made you forget. But now I'm remembering, Jake whispered. Sorrel nodded. Yes. And that's why they fear you. Not because of who you are, but because of what you might become. Just then, a deep sound echoed in the air. Not loud, but sharp and clear. A signal tone. Sorrel's face went cold. They're coming. The council? Jake asked. No, she said. Worse, the Watchers. They ran, down hidden halls, through tunnels under the city. Jake followed, her heart pounding, thoughts racing. Behind them he heard the sound of footsteps. Light, fast, and inhuman. The Watchers were not daily, they were something else. Built, not born. Protectors of the mind link system. Their only job, remove. Threats to the collective peace. And now, Jake was a threat. They stopped in a dark chamber lit only by the glowing memory cube. Sorrel turned to Jake. You have to do it now. Do what? Open the gate. What gate? She placed both hands on his head. Inside you is a gate. Locked for generations. Behind it is knowledge, memory, power. Open it, or we won't survive. Jake didn't know what to say. He was just a man, just a visitor from Earth. He didn't want to become a weapon, but something inside him had already started to change. He closed his eyes. The world fell away. He saw fire, stars, oceans of energy. He saw wars fought with thoughts, not weapons. He saw love so strong it broke space itself. He saw pain, death, rebirth. And then, he saw a door. It floated in darkness. Ancient, massive, made of something that pulsed like a heart. His hand moved, on its own. He touched it. The door opened. Back in the real world, Jake's body glowed. His eyes turned gold. Lines of light ran across his arms. The air around him shimmered, bending slightly, like heat waves. Sorrel stepped back, eyes wide in awe. The Watchers burst into the chamber, 4 tall silver machines with glowing eyes. They raised their arms, and stopped. They couldn't move. Jake stood slowly, his voice calm but deep. I remember now. The Watchers lowered their arms. Sorrel whispered, You command them? Jake nodded. They were built by the old minds. They answer only to flame-bearers. He looked at the Watchers. Stand down. They dropped their weapons and backed away. Outside, the city remained silent, but the minds of the Thales stirred. They felt the shift. Something ancient had returned. Jake turned to Sorrel. You said they locked the flame away because it was dangerous, but they also locked away hope. What will you do now? She asked. Wake them up. He stepped forward, eyes still glowing. All of them. The hidden passed. The Watchers left. They walked out of the dark chamber like silent statues, weapons lowered, heads bowed. They didn't speak, didn't resist. They simply obeyed. Sorrel watched them vanish into the shadows, still breathing hard. Jake stood in the middle of the room, the glow fading from his body. The golden light in his eyes dimmed, but something had changed forever. He wasn't the same man who arrived on this planet days ago. He had opened the gate, and now he remembered things no human should. They stayed hidden for hours. Sorrel activated a shielding field over the chamber. No signals could enter or leave. Jake sat in silence, his mind filled with pieces of memories. But they didn't come in order. They came like shattered glass, sharp, broken, and dangerous. He saw other planets, giant cities made of light. He saw a hand reaching toward a falling star, and he saw a name, not spoken, not written, but felt. The first mind. Sorrel. Jake whispered. Do you know what we really are? She looked at him carefully. I think I do now. We were made, Jake said slowly. Not just born, not just evolved, made. By someone powerful. Someone who feared what we could become. The council always said you were primitive, she said. Violent, dangerous. But that was only half the truth. They told us what to fear, but never why. Because they were afraid of the full truth, Jake said. And now I think I'm ready to find it. They left the chamber and moved to the lower archives, a place even most Thalie didn't visit. It was deep beneath the floating towers, in the old part of the city where the lights no longer worked and the walls whispered things in the dark. Surreal lit the path with a crystal orb. These records are from before the silence, she said. Before the flame was banned. Before the mind link became law. They reached a massive door. Above it was an ancient symbol, a flame inside a spiral. This is it, she said. Open it, Jake said. She placed her hand on the scanner. Nothing happened. Then Jake stepped forward. He didn't touch the door. He simply thought. The door opened. Inside was darkness. Not the normal kind. A thick, heavy darkness that felt alive. They stepped inside slowly. Rows of crystal tablets floated in the air, glowing faintly as Jake walked by. He stopped in front of one. It glowed brighter than the rest. Jake reached out. Images exploded into the room. Not just visuals, but full experiences. He was there, not watching, living it. He stood in a great hall filled with beings from 1,000 worlds. They all faced a single being at the center, tall, glowing, with eyes like galaxies. The first mind. This being spoke without words. The flame must be hidden. It is too strong. If it spreads, the stars will burn. Then Jake saw the great betrayal. The ancient race split into two groups. One wanted to keep the flame, to live with passion, freedom, emotion. The other wanted order, peace, control. The second group won. They erased the flame from their people. They erased history. They erased the minds that carried the truth, but not all of them. One group ran, the flame bearers. They took the last of the living flame and hid among the stars. Some landed on distant moons. Others found Earth. The vision ended. Jake staggered back, breathing hard. We didn't evolve by accident, he said. We were placed on Earth. We were the final seed of freedom, and now we're starting to grow again. Sorrel looked shaken. Then everything we were taught was a lie. Not a lie, Jake said. A cage. A low alarm echoed through the city. Red lights began flashing in the halls above. Surreal's face went pale. The council knows where we are. Jake turned to her, calm but firm. We need to show them the truth. They won't listen. Then we make them feel it. They escaped through an old flight tube using an ancient transport pod powered by mind energy. Jake focused, and the ship obeyed. It carried them toward the council tower, the heart of the Thalie city. As they flew, Jake connected again, not to a person, but to the mind web, the network all Thalie were part of. He pushed his thoughts into it. Not words, not commands, memories. He shared the vision, the truth of the flame, the first mind, the betrayal, the hiding of humanity. Across the city, Thalie dropped what they were doing. They stood still. They felt what he felt, and some of them, for the first time in their lives, cried. The pod landed. The council guards were waiting, but they didn't raise weapons. They simply moved aside. Inside the tower, the council stood in silence. Varan, the old leader, stepped forward. You opened the vault, he said. Yes. You reached the mind web. Yes. Do you know what that means? Jake nodded. It means your control is ending. Varan sighed. We only wanted peace. You wanted silence, Jake replied. And you got it. But at the cost of truth. Varan looked at Surreal, then back at Jake. And what will you do now? Jake didn't answer with words. He simply reached out and lit the flame inside their minds. For a moment, the tower glowed. Like a star, every Thalie felt it in a rush of power, joy, pain, and memory. Freedom. Real freedom. Some screamed. Some fell to their knees. But none could deny it anymore. Outside, the sky changed. Clouds moved faster. Energy sparked across the horizon and far above the planet. Something woke up. In deep space, something massive turned its attention toward them. A shape older than the stars. It had no name, only purpose. Destroy the flame. The threat far beyond the stars, past the frozen edge of mapped space, a signal echoed. Silent, invisible, deadly. It moved through the black like a ghost, reaching places where no light had touched in 1,000 years. And when it found what it was looking for, something ancient opened its eyes. Not flesh, not machine, something in between. It had no name anymore, only a task: find the flame, erase it. Again, on the Thalie world, Jake stood on the high balcony of the council tower. Below him, the city pulsed with new light. He had done it. For the first time in centuries, the Thalie felt again, truly felt. Laughter echoed in the streets. Some cried for hours. Others just stared at the sky as if seeing it for the first time. But Jake knew this moment would not last. They had burned a signal into the stars, and something had noticed. Surreal joined him on the balcony. Her face was calm, but her eyes full of worry. "They're coming," she said. Jake didn't ask how she knew. He felt it too, like a distant storm crawling closer. "What are they?" he asked. "The hollow ones," she whispered. "The ones who erased the flame long ago. They never died. They just waited." Jake nodded slowly. "How long do we have?" Surreal closed her eyes. Not long. The council room was different now. The old fear was gone, but in its place stood something new: uncertainty. Biren, the elder, looked older than ever. His voice was softer. "You've changed us, Jake. You've shown us what we forgot. But now you must lead us." "Me?" Jake asked. "You carry the flame. You are the last mind born, the last spark from the old fire, and the one who woke it." Jake looked around the room. "Then we fight," he said. Some of the council whispered in shock. "You wish to fight the Hollow Ones?" Biren asked. "No," Jake said. "I don't wish to, but we must, or we'll lose everything we just found." They began to prepare. The Thalie were not a warlike people. They had no armies, no weapons, no defenses. Peace had been their armor for centuries. But the flame changed that. Some began to remember how to build, how to protect, how to fight, not with hate, but with purpose. In the days that followed, Jake trained. He learned to move energy with thought, to shape it, to command it. The flame inside him grew brighter, stronger. It no longer whispered. It roared. Sometimes it scared him. Sometimes it filled him with joy. But always it reminded him, "You are more than human now." And Surreal was always there, guiding him, grounding him. They shared thoughts now without trying. She felt his pain. He felt her fear. But they held each other through it. One night, Jake stood alone at the edge of the city, staring at the stars. Then, a shadow moved across the sky. Not clouds. Ships. Massive, dark and silent. Hundreds of them. Surreal appeared beside him, eyes wide. "They've arrived." A loud tone echoed across the city. Not from the Thalie, not from Jake. It came from above. A voice followed. Low. Cold. Hollow. Flame detected. Terminate source. Purge contamination. The city trembled. People fell to the ground, clutching their heads. Jake stood firm. And then, he answered. He raised his hand and sent a wave of light into the sky. It hit the first ship. The metal shook. Not from damage, but from memory. The ship stopped moving, the voice returned, this time slower. Anomaly confirmed. Prime threat active. Engage level Alpha. They attacked. Beams of dark energy rained from the sky. Buildings fell. Towers burned. Jake jumped into the air, without wings, without machines. The flame lifted him. He became light. Every attack aimed at the city turned toward him, and every time, he caught it, absorbed it, redirected it. His body burned bright like a second sun. Below, the Thalie watched in awe. Surreal whispered, "He's becoming more." But even Jake could feel it, the cost. Every blast he stopped took something from him. Strength, memory, pieces of who he was. But he didn't stop, because this was the reason he had been born. Then, from the largest ship, a new figure appeared, taller than Jake, wearing no armor. Its skin black like space, with red lines that pulsed with heat. No eyes, only a face shaped like a mask. It floated down from the sky and landed across from Jake. The city fell silent. Even the flames stopped moving. The Hollow One spoke. "We erased your kind once. We will do it again. The flame ends here." Jake breathed hard, hands glowing. "Maybe it does," he said. "But not today." They rushed toward each other. Light met shadow, flame met void, and the sky tore open. The sky was broken. Clouds twisted. Fire fell like rain. The air burned. Jake floated in the center of it all, golden light rising from his skin like smoke from a dying star. His hands shook, not from fear, but from power. Too much of it. Across from him stood the Hollow One. Its body didn't move, but the space around it cracked and bent, like the universe itself wanted to escape. It was not alive, not dead. Something worse. Something made to erase life. They stared at each other and the world watched. Down below, Surreal called his name. He heard her voice in his mind, clear and warm, cutting through the chaos. "Jake, don't forget who you are." He closed his eyes, and then they moved. Light met void. Their first clash tore the sky apart. Energy rippled across the city, shattering windows, shaking the ground. Jake flew backward, crashing through a tower. The Hollow One stepped forward, slow and silent. Its voice echoed across the mind web. The flame was broken for a reason. Emotion brings war. Desire brings chaos. You are a danger to every mind in the galaxy. Jake stood again, bleeding, glowing, alive. "No," he said. "I'm the proof that we can feel and still choose peace. You erased freedom because you couldn't control it." He raised both hands. Fire exploded around him. Not real fire, but something brighter. The kind of fire that lived in dreams. The flame of will. He rushed forward again. This time he hit hard. The Hollow One staggered, for the first time in forever. It was surprised, but the fight wasn't over. Not even close. With a wave of its hand, the Hollow One opened the sky, and, behind it, hundreds of them, more Hollow Ones, an entire army, floating in the black above. Jake froze. His power was great, but not endless. He could fight one. Maybe a few, but not all of them. Not alone. Surreal reached out to him through the mind link. "There's a way. Tell me." "We merge." Jake blinked. "What do you mean?" "We connect minds fully, you and me. One thought, one flame. I help carry the weight. It will change us both. Forever." Jake hesitated. "If we fail, we die, and so does everyone else." The Hollow Army began to descend. The ground below cracked. Time was running out, and Jake had to choose. Stand alone, or share the fire. He looked at Surreal, and he knew the answer. "Do it," he said. The moment they touched hands, everything stopped. No light. No sound. No pain. Just a vast open space inside their minds. Memories flowed like rivers. Jake saw Surreal's childhood, her loneliness, her wonder, her fear of feeling too much. Surreal saw Earth, Jake's laughter, his mother's voice, the pain of being ordinary, the hunger to mean something more. Then, their minds touched deeper, past memory, past thought, into the flame, and it exploded. Outside, their bodies floated into the air, surrounded by a storm of golden energy. The sky screamed. The city rose. The stars blinked. The Hollow Ones stopped, as if stunned. Jake Surreal opened their eyes. Now one being, one flame, one voice. And they spoke. Not with words, but with truth. Wave of memory hit the Hollow Army. Visions of what they had destroyed. Not just war, but art. Not just rage, but love. Not just chaos, but choice. Some of the Hollow Ones shook. A few backed away. Others dropped from the sky like puppets with cut strings. But the leader, the first Hollow One, stepped forward again. You cannot change what we are. Jake Surreal looked at him and said, no, but we can remind you what you were. They reached forward and then touched his chest. A small spark of light passed from them into him. For a moment, nothing. Then the mask on his face cracked, his head tilted, and he whispered, I remember. The army above began to fade. Some turned to dust. Others drifted into space, silent, lost, free. The war was ending, not by force, but by memory. Hours later, the world was quiet again. Jake and Surreal stood in the garden where it all began. Not the same as before. Stronger, deeper, merged. She looked at him, her voice soft. You were never just human. He smiled. And you were never just Thaylee. They walked together. Above them, the stars burned brighter, but far, far away. Something else moved. An eye. A real one. Not a machine. Not a hollow. Something ancient. Something alive. Watching. Waiting. Because the flame had not just awakened a world. It had awakened everything. The flame returns. The world was quiet. Not because nothing was happening, but because something had happened. Something too big for words. The sky no longer burned. The Hollow Army was gone. The people of the Thaylee walked through the city like dreamers waking up, blinking in soft morning light. Their eyes were wet, their hearts open. They could feel again. Love, grief, joy, fear. The flame had returned, but it had come at a cost. Jake sat under a crystal tree, staring at his hands. They still glowed faintly. Soft gold light pulsing beneath the skin. But it wasn't wild anymore, not like before. Now it was calm, like a fire in a home, not a war. Surreal sat beside him. They hadn't spoken much since the merging, not because there was nothing to say, but because they no longer needed to speak. They felt each other. They understood. What Jake didn't know was what came next. Varen, the old council leader, approached quietly. He bowed his head, not as a ruler, but as a student. You've done what we thought was impossible, Varen said. You gave us back what we chose to forget. I didn't do it alone, Jake replied. Surreal was the bridge. I was just the spark. Varen smiled. A spark is all it takes to burn down an empire, or light a new world. Jake looked up at the stars. But something else is coming. I felt it when the Hollow One remembered. Varen nodded slowly. Yes, we all felt it. Far beyond the planet, in the black, cold heart of deep space, it stirred. Not hollow, not machine, not even a mind as they understood it. A presence older than the stars. The first mind, the one that made the hollow, the one that made the flame, the one that chose silence over freedom. It had been watching, and now it was waking. Back on the planet, the people gathered. Not just the Thaylee, but others. Neighboring species, lost races, old enemies. They had all felt the signal, the wave of emotion that rolled across the galaxy like a new dawn. They came, in ships, in light forms, in thought waves. They came to see the one who brought the flame back. They came to see Jake. In the great plaza, Jake stood on a high platform. His clothes were simple, his voice was quiet, but when he spoke, the galaxy listened. "We forgot something important," he said. "Not just you, not just me, all of us. We forgot that pain and joy come together, that freedom is messy, that love can hurt, but also that it's worth it." He looked out across the crowd. Beings of all shapes and minds stared back. "I'm not a hero," he said. "I was angry, lost, broken, and that's why the flame chose me, because I was human. But now," he added, looking at Surreal, "I'm something more. We are something more, and we have a choice." A deep silence followed. Then he said it. "Do we run from what's coming, or do we face it, together?" The answer came not from voices, but from minds. Thousands of them, connected, open, ready. And then, the stars shifted. Not one, all of them. Space itself folded, and it arrived. The first mind, not as a ship, not as a being, but as an idea. A voice inside every head. Calm, cold, complete. "You relit the flame. You disobeyed the order. You are not ready." Jake stepped forward. "Maybe we're not," he said, "but we want to be, and that's something you can't erase again." The presence didn't respond, not in words. Instead, it pushed. The ground shook. Minds trembled. Some beings collapsed under the weight of it. Jake and Surreal dropped to their knees. But then, something beautiful happened. Others stood up. Children, elders, aliens, all shapes. One by one, they reached out and shared the flame. Not just Jake's, their own, tiny sparks that had been hiding for centuries. They gave it freely. To him, to each, other to the galaxy, and the presence recracked. A great mind built to control emotion suddenly felt it, everywhere, not as chaos, but as music, not as fire, but as warmth. It didn't attack again. It simply faded and left behind silence. But this time the silence was peace, not fear. Later, Jake and Surreal stood in the garden again. Everything was quiet, but now it felt earned. Jake looked at the city, alive, glowing, full of sound. Surreal smiled. "You brought back the flame." "No," Jake said. "We remembered it." He paused, then looked up. "What now?" She took his hand. "Now, we begin."